hey, Mr. G3. Hey, what do people call you? They call you Robert. They call you RG3. What do people that meet you for the first time call you?
Mr. Bones.
Yeah.
People who meet me for the first time call me RG3, but it's just my initials. So you can call me Rob, Griff, 3 if you want to call me RG, or if you want to call me RG3, go for it.
Yeah, it's like I've been following your career. Like I know people that know you, and they're like, we love them, but like, what first time you meet them, if it's formal, Mr. G3, like that. So we really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us. I want to start obviously with the quarterbacks and Ravens and Bills. Like that's the game. Both quarterbacks have a different pressure on them, but a lot of pressure on both. Who's got the most? Is it Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson?
No, I mean, it's Lamar Jackson. And, the bottom line is this is an MVP showdown. Like, this is the kind of game that you wish the MVP trophy could actually be on the line during this game. To have it in the divisional round shows you that the football gods have really been looking good upon us and blessing us in this moment. But honestly, the game, there's more pressure on Lamar because of how he has performed in the playoffs. Especially in his second game. The stats support that, he's won the majority of his first round games, but in his second game in the playoffs, his numbers are really, really bad. Not numbers that you would expect from a 2-time MVP. And Josh Allen, on the other hand, in the playoffs has actually performed extremely well. I think his QBR is over 100, or his quarterback rating is over 100. He's just run into a buzzsaw a bunch of times with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think there is more pressure on Lamar Jackson being the 2-time MVP. But I don't think it comes down to whether or not Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson plays better. I personally believe it comes down to the running backs, Derrick Henry and James Cook. In their first matchup in week 4, James Cook had 39 yards rushing and Derrick Henry had 199. So when you look at that, it's the big fellas up front who don't get the most love in the world, those offensive linemen. But it's going to come down to how well they play, and the running backs are going to truly take this game over and determine who wins.
Would it be fair to say that there's the most pressure on Lamar in the playoffs, but Josh Allen's pressure would be against Patrick Mahomes because other than regular season, he has not been able to win that situation?
Yeah, I think that is fair. But the bottom line for Josh Allen is he's not going against Patrick Mahomes in this game. And when you look at the first round games for each team, the Ravens beat the Steelers, and of course the Bills beat the Broncos. But the Bills went 1 for 5 in the red zone against the Denver Broncos. And if they do that against the Baltimore Ravens, they're not going to win the game. In their first matchup in week 4, they went 1 for 2 in the red zone. The Ravens went 4 for 4 and blew them out 35-10. So Josh Allen cannot focus on what could be ahead in Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs if they both get there. They have to take care of a Baltimore Ravens teams that beat the brakes off of them earlier in the season and truly is kind of like a little bit of their kryptonite right now because what the Ravens are great at, the Bills aren't.
The Eagles did not throw the ball well last week. They did win the game, but they did not throw the ball well. You got Book reading on the sideline. It's not like they don't have the receivers. Was that obviously not purposeful, but do they have to get a lot better at throwing the ball, or are they just establishing Saquon in the run and then anything else is just gravy?
Bobby, it all comes down to perspective here, okay? If you want to look at the glass half full, you say, listen, Saquon ran the ball extremely well. Jalen Hurts didn't need to throw the football all that often. And they're going up against the LA Rams, who they dominated in the running game. I think Saquon had 255 yards rushing in their game earlier this season as well. So that's glass half full. If you want to be negative and you want to look at a glass half empty, there's no way in hell that A.J. Brown should ever finish a game that he was healthy in with 1 catch for 10 yards. And I think when you look at the Eagles Super Bowl run, their passing game was humming. And when you have guys like Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, and Saquon Barkley also catching passes out of the backfield, there's no excuse for the Eagles to not be clicking on all cylinders when it comes to their passing game. And the only caveat there is that Jalen Hurts missed the last 2 games of the season. So could he be getting back into the swing of things, knocking off a little bit of rust? Yes. But A.J. Brown reading that book on the sideline was something that I've heard he does a lot. It's not the first time he's done it, But the way they caught him reading it seemed like he was trying to woo-saw himself some Martin Lawrence to make sure that he didn't, completely freak out on the entire team. And AJ's a team guy. I got to say that. He's a team guy. He only cares about winning. He had great spirits on the sideline. But if I'm a quarterback, I'm not finishing the game with him having one catch for 10 yards. He's getting one catch for 10 yards per drive. Like, he's that important to their passing game. And when he's clicking, they're clicking. They got to find a way to get him the ball at least 5 times in the first quarter of this game coming up.
It can be Redskins, Browns, or Ravens. But when you were playing, was there a receiver that you felt, I got to get him the ball early just so he stays involved mentally in the game? Who was that?
Yeah, my best receiver at the time was Pierre Garçon. He was my first touchdown pass in my career against the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. So I knew I needed to get him the ball early, but it was also because he was our best player. And when you're an offensive coordinator, I know Kellen Moore is known for having these number one offenses and being able to do it either through the air or on the ground. But you have that scripted 15 plays when you start the game. And you have to find ways to have at least 5 plays in that script that guaranteed A.J. Brown is getting the football. I'm telling you, when you do that and you get your star receiver involved early, it eliminates a lot of the consternation. It forces the defense to have to play coverage to that guy and opens up everybody else in the passing game. So that would be my note to Kellen Moore is get the ball to A.J. Brown. He's your best player. I know Saquon Barkley's pretty beastly too. But A.J. Brown's your best pass catcher. Go get him the ball.
Chiefs and Texans. Chiefs basically had 2 weeks off because a lot of those guys didn't play the last week of the season. But those guys are vets, and Andy Reid's done it, so they don't need it, right?
No, they don't. The thing I always say about the Kansas City Chiefs is they're not playing to win like the T-shirt Olympics or to look sexy during the regular season. They have one mission, and their mission is to three-peat. And I think they're poised to do it. Their defense is one of the top 5 in the NFL, and they got Patrick Mahomes at quarterback with a healthy slate of wide receivers. And Travis Kelce, who seemed like he took the entire regular season off, is now back and ready to roll in the postseason. And in their last game, you kind of saw him come to life on Christmas Day. So for the Chiefs, they were probably bored during the regular season, knowing that their mission was to be the first team ever to three-peat. And I don't think that 2 weeks off will bother them. It's more of them coming out and establishing the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball against a Houston Texans team that looked really, really good last week.
When Kevin Durant was drafted out of Texas, the story was he's so slight. Yeah, he's tall. He can shoot for a tall guy, but he's so slight. Same thing with Jaden Daniels a bit, right? It was he's thin. With Kevin Durant, nobody talks about how thin he is anymore. Will that part of the conversation end with Jaden Daniels after seeing what he's done this year?
I think it's already ended. I heard those murmurs about, hey, he's too skinny. Can he take a hit? Does he protect himself? And I think throughout his first year in the NFL, he's proven that he's not too skinny, that he can take a hit, and he's actually gotten smarter about sliding and getting down to avoid a lot of those big collisions. But the special thing for me with Jaden Daniels is just his demeanor. You hear people say the old Stuart Scott saying he's cool on the other side of the pillow. This guy, when the stakes get higher, his emotions and his demeanor stays the same. It's almost like he rises as the stakes get higher in the game. And he's got 5 game-winning drives this year. The Commanders have won their last 5 games, all on the last play from scrimmage. So I've heard some people call them the cardiac Commanders. And to me, it's just, right now, if you're the Washington Commanders, if you get the ball and you're down by 3, you're down by 5, and Jaden Daniels is your quarterback, that you're going to win that football game. And that's a situation that if you're the Detroit Lions, you do not want to let the Commanders hang around, because Jaden Daniels has a knack, especially in his rookie year, of finding ways to get the Commanders to win the game, and their Cinderella season can continue. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. Obviously, I play for the Commanders, and I'm very excited about the team and what Jaden's done. There's no better city to win in than in Washington, D.C. But at the end of the day, the Detroit Lions are the favorites to win the Super Bowl right now. And if you're them, you don't want to allow the Cinderella story to continue. Don't let them hang around. Otherwise, Jaden Daniels will beat you.
So speaking of Jaden, like that reminds me of your career. And so my question to you is, how do you go in as a rookie into a position that is traditionally the leadership position and lead when everyone's like, dude, you're a kid. Like, how hard is that to do?
It's very hard. And listen, I had, the honor to play with guys like London Fletcher, who calls the games, I believe, for NBC, during the week and during the postseason for the Commanders. I got to play with Santana Moss. And when you walk into that locker room and you got two legends that you've looked up to your entire life, basically, I see that as being essentially similar to what Jaden experienced walking into a locker room with Bobby Wagner as your middle linebacker. There's a certain level of respect that you have towards that player. And the number one thing you have to do is show them. You don't got to tell them. Don't tell them what you're going to do. Don't tell them you're going to do this and we're going to do that. You show them what you're going to do. And that's what Jaden did. He went in, he worked his tail off, he earned their respect, he earned the starting job. And now he's shown them with his play that he is their leader and that they should follow him. He's risen the level of everybody around him. Their leading receiver last week was De'Ami Brown. I know who De'Ami Brown is. I'm sure his family and friends know who he is too. But that was a career game for him, and he had big plays in the biggest moments, and Jaden never even batted an eye at throwing the football in his direction in those moments. So to me, I just look at what he's been able to accomplish, and I'm very, obviously proud of what he's been able to do. But he has shown them that they can trust him and they can believe in him. Look at his reaction. Go back and watch his reaction after Zane made the field goal to doink them into the divisional round. He didn't react at all because he has a higher mission in mind. It's not just about winning one playoff game. He wants to bring the Super Bowl back to Washington, D.C., and I think that's what he's going to eventually do in his career, and he has a good chance of doing it this year. How
slow were the defenses in high school to you? Like, was it turtles?
Now, like, you don't realize it until you get out of it. Okay. So I grew up in a 1,000 square foot home, if that. Well, when I turned pro, my first house was 6,000 square feet. So when I went back after a few months of living in that house to the house I grew up in, you tell yourself, holy cow, I didn't realize that this house was actually this small, because when I grew up in it, I thought it was a mansion. So when you go back and you watch high school football after you've been in college for a few months, you realize how high of a level college football is. My biggest offensive lineman was, let me take that back. My starting center in high school was 5'10", 250 pounds. My starting center in college was 6'4", 325 pounds. So just from your eyes and what you see, it's completely different. It's a completely different game. So when I watch high school football now, yes, it's the slowest thing I've ever seen. It's like watching basketball at the YMCA or at Lifetime Fitness. You're like, oh man, that's something, it's part of it.
They have you playing multiple positions when needed in high school because you were the athlete?
I did. I played quarterback and I played safety. So,
and you played both ways all the time. Like you weren't like the nickel or dime guy. Like you were the safety.
No, I didn't play both ways the entire time. Now, like Travis Hunter, playing every single snap at wideout and DB. I did not do that. I played spot duty safety, which basically meant if we were going against a team that had a guy that was faster than everybody else on the defense, then they put me at safety because that was my job. Hey, just go run that guy down. Okay, go run that guy down and make sure he doesn't score. But I actually started off playing outside linebacker and quarterback, so that was fun for a little bit. But no, I didn't play full time both sides of the ball in high school.
I feel like if you're playing linebacker, if you're playing off ball, there's a lot of finger and wrist injuries that can easily happen. And I don't want my quarterback who needs their fingers, wrists, and arms. Like, I think that's probably why I would not, even though you're like the great athlete of the conference, division, state, I wouldn't want you playing a linebacker, right? That had to be why.
Yes, if we threw the ball a little bit. We ran the ball a fair share and had an all-state running back behind me by the name of Troy Vital. Served in the military. It's my brother, appreciate his service. But playing linebacker and having a long arm guys and set the edge of the line of scrimmage and make sure everything gets turned back inside can be a little bit more difficult on the shoulder region, if you know what I'm saying. So that's probably why I stopped playing linebacker.
The jump from high school to college or the jump from college to pros, which speed differential shocked you most?
Ooh, I think the jump from that is a tough question. That is a very tough question. See, Bob, that's why you do this. I would say the jump from college to the NFL was more drastic because when you go from high school to college, the talent travels with you, right? So I used to go to camps in the summer and I'd be throwing the receivers who are 5-star, 4-star guys going to all these big schools. They catch everything. You know, you throw it at their toes, their baby toenail on their pinky toe. They scrape it off the ground. They make a great play, or they make a one-handed grab behind their back. I didn't have a ton of that in high school. I had great receivers though, but not a ton of that. Well, when you go to college, now all those guys are coming with you. So the talent level is a big jump, but the talent around you is also a big jump. I feel like in the NFL, you take the one or two guys. I played against Von Miller in college. He went to Texas A&M. Well, now there's like 7 Von Millers on one team, and they're all rushing you at the same time. And now your offensive line doesn't have the advantage because you don't got to focus on one edge. You got to focus on both edges. And that to me is where the speed difference kind of became bigger, and the hashes are tighter in the NFL than they are in college. So there's more space to cover for the defense in college than there is in the NFL. So everything is tighter. The throwing windows are tighter. The talent is every single guy on the field was somebody in high school and college. They were All-American in high school, All-American in college. And now the whole defense is All-Americans. That's why it's a lot more difficult in the NFL. Tighter field, better athletes, and they're getting paid. So if you score a touchdown on them or they miss a tackle, it's taking food off their plate. And I don't think people understand how hungry guys are when they get to the NFL because they have to take care of their families. That's a big difference than growing into becoming a man in college football.
As kids, we would watch our favorite teams. It didn't matter the sport, and we had freaking rivals. Like, grew up a Cubs fan, hated the Cardinals. Grew up we have Cowboy fans I'm super close with, hated, whatever other NFC. So
the Redskins.
Sure, fair enough.
Yes.
How real is that in the locker room, though? Like, how does that translate? And if it does, is it media driven that makes you hate the other team, or do you at all?
I think it's a combination. It depends on how long you're there, right? I go to Baylor. Our natural rivals were the teams that used to beat the crap out of us all the time. So like Texas and Oklahoma probably didn't look at Baylor as a rival, but we certainly looked at them as rivals. And when we eventually beat them there when I was in college, it was a big deal. But TCU was one of our rivals. A&M was one of our rivals. In the NFL, it's almost like you guys ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
Familiar with it?
Okay, you're familiar with it. I've never played, by the way. I would love to.
Well, I only said familiar with it because I didn't want you to feel like we were judging.
We've never played.
Yeah, I have never played Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. But I mean, real life action, live playing, all that. What they call them, LARPers. It's almost like you're cosplaying whatever team that you're on. You never hear a player say, "Man, this fan base is just the worst." Right? It's always, hey, man, this fan base is the greatest. They're the best. They're awesome. So whatever that fan base is passionate about, the players become passionate about, because you want to endear yourself to the fan base. You want to endear yourself and your teammates to the people who are supporting you, paying for the tickets. Really the reason that we even have a job in the first place is because of the fandom that they have of these teams. So if you're the Bears, yeah, you're going to hate the Packers. If you're the Commanders, you're going to hate the Cowboys and the Eagles and the Giants. And I think it becomes real the longer you're there. If you're there for 3, 4, 5 years, that's real hatred. It becomes ingrained in you. It's no longer cosplaying it. But when you step foot into a rivalry and the first thing you say as a starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears is, F the Packers, yeah, it's not really real. You don't have any experience with that. You're just cosplaying that in the moment. But I will say, for guys that were on teams that I was on for multiple years, it becomes real quickly because of the animosity between the fan bases.
RG3, how much football do you actually watch? Because, Bobby and I, we talk about, telling our wives, like, hey, well, this was important to us. We're actually going to watch this game.
It's work. Yeah, we're like, it's work.
Yeah, versus all day Sunday. How much football are you actually watching on Sundays, and especially the playoffs too, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I watch the games, and the NFL has the app now where you can basically stream the games, even if they're not shown in your whatever part of the country that you're in. Which I used to hate that, right? You're stuck with, no offense, the Jaguars going against the Titans, and you want to watch the Ravens and the Bills, So I do watch a ton of football on TV when the games are live. But that pales in comparison to the amount of football that I feel like I have to watch after the games are all done, breaking down the film so that I can be educated when I talk to you guys. I want to say this the wrong way, but there's a lot of people out there who are faking it. I watch all this tape, I do all this, and they don't really do it. And you can tell when they start talking about the game. But I don't know if you guys experience this in your own relationships, but for me, it's on Sundays and on the weekend. I'm a girl dad of 4. As you can see, the hoodie here. Got this from the daughters. I did not make this hoodie for myself. They made it for me. So thank you. Appreciate you guys. But it's wifey wants to go do things. So it's like, hey, we're going to the pumpkin patch, or we're going to this light show over here. We're going to go see Sonic 3. And I'm like, yeah, but the game's on. I kind of got to watch this. And so she wins, of course, right? And we go do these different things, and I make sure that I find ways to watch the game, either on my phone or just keep track of it on social media. So that to me is probably the biggest struggle, but it's a struggle that I'm willing to take on because I enjoy being a girl dad and I love my family, and I want to do things with them as well as watch football.
Last question. Where do you keep your Heisman?
Right now it is right there.
Do you see it?
Yeah. You guys see it?
Right in the middle.
Oh, right in the middle. Look.
Oh, it is right there.
Yeah,
It's covered it up. Yeah, that's pretty. I had T-Bows at my house for a while. I think it's very heavy. I was surprised at how heavy that like even when they hand it to you, are you like, oh God, when you win it, you're like, oh God, dang, that thing's heavy, right?
Yeah, it's a good 45,
it's substantial.
50 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's distributed weirdly. It's not like a plate where you can just grab and hold on to it. Did you win T-Bows on in the auction that he does?
Luke Bryan is a friend of mine, and we were doing some stuff on ESPN, and so and Luke was messing trolling T-Bow. I have a bulldog, and so he's having the bulldog lick the Heisman. So it just stayed at the house for a couple days. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons.
We're licking trophies and playing Dungeons and Dragons.
We're LARPing, whatever. Yeah. So you mentioned your family. So Out of Pocket with RG3 is the podcast that you do with your wife. How? Yep. Like with her involvement, was she like, I want to do this? Or were you like, hey, this would be a really cool dynamic if we did this?
I would say that it was probably, our families are always there for us when things go wrong. So, and when they go right, of course. So when I ended up getting laid off from ESPN, my wife was the person that I talked to about really everything, but also sports, and like, hey, I got this take. Would you be able to understand this? She's Estonian. So, football wasn't, the thing that they really focus on over there in Europe. It's more football, soccer. So if she could understand what I was saying, then I knew that the people that I'm talking to, whether it's the most complicated fan or the fan that doesn't know a lot, would know what's going on. So for doing that for 3 to 4 years, she became very well versed in football, which is obviously the world that I exist in. But she's also the record holder at Florida State in the heptathlon. So she's a great athlete of her own that we connected via track and field. That's a big bond for the both of us. And I was like, I kind of want to do this podcast thing. Let's have some fun. And I wanted to do it with her. I wanted her to be my co-host. I feel like she adds so much more to the dialogue of not just football, but life, asking people the questions that people really want to know, not just, hey, what's cover 2, what's double alert, cover 0. They want to know how these people are as family and who they are behind closed doors. When we sat down with Notre Dame's Marcus Freeman and we asked him about raising 6 kids, and he started to talk about how his wife was the reason that he's able to do the job that he's able to do and why they're in the national championship now. And I think people want to hear that. So for me, being able to do this with my wife is something that's truly special. And I think that she would probably say the same thing, that when things hit the fan, we looked at each other and said, let's just do this together. And it's been a great journey so far. I think it'll continue to be.
Yeah, add it to your list, podcast and YouTube. Out of Pocket with RG3. Mr. G3, thank you for the time, man. Really, you're awesome. Yeah, I've heard you're awesome dude to be around, and I appreciate it. And hopefully we get a great playoffs, and maybe I'll see you one day in person. Thank you very much.
No doubt. We'll make it happen. Appreciate you, Bobby.
See you, buddy.
God bless, brother.